The First Day of Summer. Written by Winslow Swan. Audiobook narrated and produced by Edward James Beesley.
This was a great idea.
Andrea stretched out on the small boat that her friend Wyatt had rented for the summer. Her two-piece bikini was almost sheer, showing off her ample breasts. The warm rays of the sun heated her skin and created a sheen of sweat on her. Her long black hair hung loosely just over the railing.
"Grab me another beer, will you?"
Billy told her. Andrea batted her eyes and smiled, reaching in the cooler for the ice-cold can of beer.
"Aw, thanks,"
Billy said, grabbing the beer and popping it open, taking a healthy swig. He felt the cool liquid slide down his throat as he found a comfortable position on the small craft.
"So,"
Andrea told the two guys, both wearing swim trunks and both eyeing the girl, a senior at their college studying, well, they couldn't really remember, but what they did know was that she had one killer body.
"So what?"
Billy asked.
"So, what did you two guys bring me out here on the Gulf of Mexico for?"
She asked, a slight smile on her face.
You know why, Andrea,"
Carla said, raising up from her place on the small craft, her own bikini barely covering her.
"Yes, I know, Carla, but what I want to know is if they know,"
Andrea told the younger girl, a junior that she had met only a week ago. It was the first day of summer, and the four college students had only met each other a week before, planning a trip together to the sunny skies of Florida and the Gulf Coast. Wyatt had access to a boat. Bill said that he could supply the booze and the food if the girls could supply the entertainment. Both girls had readily agreed. The two guys looked at one another, and then back at the girls, who had moved a little closer to each other. Andrea had begun to caress Carla's arm, smiling seductively. Wyatt said,
"Well, I thought that we could, just hang out here in the middle of the Gulf and maybe,
Carla began to laugh. Andrea looked up at Carla and said,
"You shouldn't laugh, Carla, honey. These boys really aren't sure why they're here. I thought that by now they would have figured it out,"
Carla said, smiling. The girls looked back at the boys, now both relaxed from the beer that had been supplied.
"Well, I guess we could,"
Billy started. He hooked his thumbs inside his swim trunks and began to lower them just above his pelvis.
"Oh, what could that possibly be?"
Andrea said, her eyes growing wide in mock surprise.
"Baby, do you think that you could handle it?"
Billy asked. Wyatt began to look around, seeing if any passing boats might be looking in on the party. Comfortable that no one was near them, he began to remove his trunks, standing proudly. Carla, licking her lips seductively, said,
"Now, that is what I'm talking about."
Her hands began to caress her own body as she slowly removed her bikini. Standing up, she moved towards Wyatt, her hips swinging and her hands caressing her stomach. Her sandy blonde hair waved slightly in the wind as she approached the young man. Raising her head towards him, she kissed him hard, their tongues moving across their lips, darting in and out of their mouths. Billy took his own shirt off and made his way towards Andrea, who was watching with increasing arousal. Billy laid down beside her and began caressing her velvet hair.
"So is this what you had in mind?"
Carla asked Wyatt. Wyatt only smiled. A moment later, his smile turned into pain as he felt the knife that Carla had seen on the deck behind him. She had plunged it into his stomach, twisting and turning, causing his insides to lurch. He looked down into the eyes of the girl and saw only hatred and loathing. Grabbing her shoulders, he tried to push her away, but only stumbled onto his knees. Billy, still not noticing the murder, continued to caress Andrea's hair, her shoulders and neck, only stopping when he saw the flash of the knife and felt the blood pour from his neck as Andrea sliced into his throat. His hand grabbed the wound but could not stave off the ever-increasing flow of blood. The two men watched as the girls held each other, bathing in the blood from their victims. Wyatt caught Billy's eye as they both died, bleeding out. The two girls began to kiss passionately. Billy and Wyatt were still lying on the bottom of the boat. Andrea and Carla were in each other's arms, the two dead bodies beside them. Blood had congealed and had begun to stink from the hot summer Florida sun.
So, now what?
Carla asked. The whoomp 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 of the helicopter could be heard in the distance approaching the small craft. Carla raised up and leaned over the boat's railing.
What the hell?
She said.
What is it, babe?
Andrea asked.
Do you see that?
Carla asked as Andrea joined her by the railing.
What in the hell is it?
Andrea asked. A small, darkish shape had begun to form directly under the craft. It had begun to swirl the water around the girls and the dead bodies. A moment later, the craft hurled to the right, throwing both girls down onto the deck. The helicopter was moving in closer, almost hovering over the small craft. Waves had begun to lap at the side of the boat, growing in intensity.
What the fuck?
Carla screamed as she made her way back to the railing. The water had begun to swirl like a whirlpool, growing faster as the boat turned into the vortex.
Carla!
Andrea yelled as she saw the girl fall over the side. Racing to the railing, she saw her partner in crime going under once. Andrea couldn't see anything but the swirling blue water. The helicopter was making more noise than anything, but she thought she could hear a roaring sound like that of a wild animal.
Carla!
She yelled again as she saw the top part of her partner bob in the water. The legs went floating by near the corpse. Intestines had begun to float upward and swirl with the mixture of foam, blood, and water. The boat had begun to spin again, and Andrea was flung to the deck. She looked up and could see the horrified face of the helicopter pilot and wondered what he was seeing. It was better that she died not knowing. Paul had been tracking the strange formation for almost a mile. He had flown his helicopter over the Gulf, shark hunting and taking pictures of the different crafts. But when he had seen the strange shape about a mile from shore, he thought that it would make a pretty good picture. As he got closer to the small craft, he noticed the dark shape just under the water. Readying his camera, he flew closer. Amazement had turned to horror as he saw the two dead bodies covered in blood and gore, and the two girls looking down into the water. His horror turned to terror when he saw the one girl go overboard and be devoured. This was not a shark. As he looked into the water, he thought he could see a large set of teeth swirling the ocean, chomping at the small craft and sucking down the remains. Trying to turn his own craft, he found a wall of water surrounding him. His brain could not register the monsters that he was seeing within the water. Hundreds of abominations lashing out at him. One smashed into the windshield and took out his heart through his chest. The helicopter crashed into the middle of the torrent of ocean. Without fanfare, the crashing and the whirlpool ceased. Just under the surface, the dark shape began to move. It was the first day of summer, and all the beaches were open. Epilogue. The butler did it.
It is in all of us. Waiting, watching, growing. Evil Within by Winslow Swan, now available on Amazon.
You can help support the channel and visit our merchandise store. T-shirts, caps, mugs, and so much more. Now available at doorwaytonightmare.com.
Hey guys, this is Crimson.
And this is Swan. And we'd love to know what you think of the stories.
Even if it's bad.
So leave us a comment.
Or give us a thumbs up.
Thank you.